So I bet you can hear me now, although there was no sound, right? Yeah, it's terrible. So uh, apparently I have a equipment malfunction here with my mic. So that's something I'm gonna have to fix. So now I'm speaking through the horrible mic that is on my webcam, which is terrible. So we're gonna basically just shut down and restart. I think is what we're gonna do. Give me just a second if you don't mind. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna restart. I'm just gonna go on with it like this. It's fine. I do apologize. I'll look into the equipment after today. But in any event, I was sitting here getting completely emotional, so we can just relive that. I won't have to ramble as much as I was potentially. So, um, yeah, guys. So we're gonna talk what happened over the course of the weekend. I saw some great competition. Um, I watched it all. The men's open, the women's open, everything in between, and of course, the main feature itself, the 2023 Shaw Classic, crowning the strongest man on earth. So, this is a bittersweet moment, and it's bittersweet for a lot of reasons. If those of you who actually tuned into the stream live, like I did, you know parts of the reason it's bittersweet. Brian's last contest, right? Uh, but it's bittersweet for me too because I was actually supposed to be there this weekend, and I never got to see Brian Shaw compete live. And I wanted desperately to see Brian compete live. And so I bought the tickets, I booked my hotel room, I already spent the money, everything was in place. I was supposed to be there. And then through circumstances beyond my control, I was not able to be there. We had an electrical fire at the house, and I basically had to have the whole house rewired as sort of an emergency thing. So that changed my plans. And we still don't have electricity in all of the rooms. It's safe to be here now. So counting my lucky stars and blessed for that. Um, but yeah, I had to miss out on going to Colorado and watching the Shaw Classic live and Brian's last competition live because I had to stay home to make my home safe, get all my electricity rewired. Uh, so I was devastated coming into the weekend. Again, I already paid for everything, um, and it was very heartbreaking to know that not only did I spend the money and couldn't go there, but that I was not going to get to see Brian Shaw compete. Who knows? Maybe he'll do some master stuff later or something. I don't know, but it's not going to be the same. And it was important for me to be there, and I didn't get to. And the fact that he won makes it that much harder to swallow that I wasn't there for it. And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about. I just thought I sort of blogged the events on my YouTube channel about what was going on this weekend, gave you guys updates what was going on if you weren't getting a chance to watch it, or if you were and just wanted to follow along. It doesn't seem like that people paid attention to the content that I put on there. That's fine. Um, but I thought we'd start. And one of the things I thought we would start with was before the weekend started, I put a little poll out here, and I asked very, right here. You can see that on the screen behind me. Um, I asked, who do you think's going to win the Shaw Classic and be crowned the strongest man on earth? And it was a two-way tie, 31% apiece for Brian Shaw and Tom Stoltman. And I'll be honest, my heart was with Brian Shaw, but the way that he's looked in the last couple years and other, I didn't really think that Brian Shaw was going to win it. I thought that 31% there was a bit of a homer pick. I thought Brian would probably finish third or fourth, and I thought he would have been. I would have been. I don't know how he would have felt about it. He's super competitive, but I would have been super proud of him for a third or fourth place finish. I guess egg on my face. I thought Trey Mitchell would probably finish second to Mitchell Hooper. So I thought the two Mitchells were going to be at the top. I thought Mitchell Hooper would probably win it. Trey Mitchell would come in second. Uh, and then I thought Brian Shaw would either come in third or fourth, depending upon where Tom Stoltman came. I thought basically it would be Tom or Brian in that third place position. As it as it turned out, Brian Shaw won the whole dang thing. Mitchell Hooper finished second, and Tom Stoltman took third. Evan Singleton fourth, and Trey Mitchell went from being the two-time winner to finishing fifth. It was an exciting competition all weekend long, and there was a lot of stuff on there. So we're gonna kind of just review it. And again, I don't have any sort of plans. We're gonna go as long as this takes, or as long as I feel like rambling, and no longer. If you guys give me questions, I'll field them and stuff like that. You guys tell me what you want to talk about, we'll do that. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and talk to myself. As far as will he compete in the Masters, I don't know. Knowing Brian, I think that he probably will, but I don't think he's going to do it right away. Age-wise, he could. He could start competing right away. But I think he's going to take some time to continue worrying about things like business, really get the Shaw Classic to doing what he wants, especially now that they have this whole trademark of the strongest man on earth. I think he's really going to build that. And again, he doesn't really kind of half butt anything. He goes all out and tries to make the best of everything. So I think he's going to focus on those other interests and compete in those as heavily as he ever did in strongman. And then in a few years, we might see him come on like a reunion tour, so to speak, and start competing on the Masters. And that's what I would predict, but I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. So one thing is, I put another poll after that, which was I was curious, like, are you watching the Shaw Classic? And nobody who responded to me was there on site. And only 4 people responded. 3 said no, so give us some results. So I did. And one person said that they were watching it through other means. I don't know who that was, but I'm going to wag my finger at you and say shame on you. I paid for the event online, even though I paid for tickets and couldn't be there. So I paid for this thing twice. $20, not a lot of money, and the money goes to the athletes. They don't make a ton of money in this sport that we love. So I truly believe if you had the ability to watch it, you should have got your credit card out and paid for it legally and ethically and watched it and cheered them on that way. So whoever it was that was honest to say they basically pirated the thing, I'm giving you credit for being honest, even though it's anonymous, so it's a lot easier to do that. But I'm also giving you it should be a shame, man. Or woman. The non-gender specific man. I think he should have supported the athletes. Speaking of supporting the athletes, I want to give Brian Shaw credit again. So they raised a lot of extra money in addition to the normal announced prize money. And this is the second time Brian has won the thing and has said that he is keeping $0 of the prize money. So for first place, he said at the end that his take as the winner should have been just over $100,000, of which he is keeping 0 and splitting that $100,000 up between the other athletes that competed this weekend. So big props to Brian for doing that, proving once again what we already know about it. Such a stand-up guy, and he really is. It's hard not to like Brian Shaw. So we went in, and the weekend got started with the women doing the overhead medley. That was won by Melissa Peacock. And I'll also give a spoiler alert here if we make it up to the top of the list, which I don't know if we're going to go that far. But Melissa Peacock also gets my Performance of the Weekend award because she finished third in the Women's Open. But the reason I'm giving her the Performance of the Weekend isn't because of her third place performance. I'm giving that award. I was going to give it to the most stand-up performance in any event. And we saw some really awesome performances this weekend by several different people. But Melissa Peacock, when they did the car deadlift, most of the ladies were struggling to get like 3, 4, 5 reps. No one was getting any more than that. Melissa Peacock steps up there after all the men on their. They had the men and women going side by side. It was kind of cool to watch. Little battle of the sexes action. Obviously, the men's car deadlift was a lot heavier, but they had them going side by side. And the men were routinely getting double digits. The women, again, like 5 reps. If you got 6 reps, which one person did before Melissa got up there, it was like, wow. We had one person get 6. Most 5 was like the number to beat, and most of them were struggling, like I said, to get between 0 and 2. Melissa Peacock went up there, and she didn't just get 6 reps to tie. She didn't get 7 reps to take the lead. She wasn't the first woman to get double digits. Melissa Peacock deadlifted that automobile 20 times. Let me say that again, just in case you don't hear me. Melissa Peacock picked up a mother freaking car 20 times. She didn't just best the best mark by the women by a large. As a matter of fact, I think the person who came in second was 11 reps. Someone came after her. Might have been Sam Beliveau, but I'm not sure on that. Or it might have been Olga. Sam or Olga, one of the two. But they got 11, maybe 12. But Melissa had 20 freaking reps. The best man performance from a man was like 13 or 14. So she smoked the field. And I give Melissa Peacock the performance of the weekend award. So anyway, she was your winner of the overhead medley. The men's overhead medley was won by Zach Price, and of course we're talking about the open division here. Okay. Then the women's open had a sandbag and wheelbarrow medley, which was won by Olga, which meant that we went to the leaderboard after 2 events, and the women's leaderboard looked like this right here. Olga was in first, Sam Beliveau was in second, Melissa Peacock was in third, Corey Butler was in fourth, Jackie Ovchevsky was in fifth, and everybody else was down in the points. I was really hoping that wasn't going to scroll all the way back down. I should have opened that in a new tab. That stinks. So I guess with that, we'll just talk about some other stuff at this point. I guess one of the things that we can do then is we can talk about the men and women's open winners. That's what we'll do now, okay? So your women's podium for your women's open, Olga won the whole thing. Last year, I believe she finished second. Sam Beliveau finished second. And Melissa Peacock, as I already mentioned, finished third for the women. In your classic 2023 Shaw Classic Men's Open, it was won by Austin Andrade. We'll open this up here so you can see everything. Wesley Derwinski took second, and Joey Leveille took third. So what this means is Austin Andrade will go ahead and get to compete alongside the big boys next year, the 2024 Shaw Classic, assuming it keeps that name. They might just start calling it the strongest man on earth from here on out. I don't know. But just like Thomas Evans earned that right last year, Austin Andrade earned it this year. And speaking of Thomas Evans, I believe he finished 5th or 6th. Hopefully I don't have to scroll down too far here. Let's see here. Let me see if I have everybody's results. I think Thomas Evans finished 6th. So considering that he just earned the right by winning the Open last year, that's pretty good. That puts him in the top half of the field pretty easily. And when you think about the fact that without this Open, he wouldn't have been there, it's incredible. And that's, to me, that's Brian Shaw giving these guys more opportunities. And Thomas Evans has made the most of his opportunity. Last year, he competes in the Men's Shaw Classic Open. He goes on and wins a couple events and does really well at various things in Pro Strongman this year. And this year, he shows up, competes with these guys as their peers. One of the peers, he's there with them, and and he finishes in, I think sixth. It could have been as high as fifth, but I think it was, no, it was sixth. It was sixth because your top five was again Shaw, Mitchell Hooper, Tom Stoltman, Evan Singleton, Trey Mitchell, Thomas Evans. Yeah, so Thomas Evans finished sixth. Um, Great to see you too, Brad. Uh, so obviously you can see exactly what your strongest man on earth podium looks like. Brian Shaw wins the entire thing, and I'm so proud of Brian. I think we're all proud of Brian. Um, I'm proud. I'm also very, very, very upset. I was supposed to be there this weekend, and it is legitimately killing my spirit that I had to stay home. I feel like I missed some history. I think you guys know it's hard to find someone that loves this sport more than I do, or is as passionate about it as I am. And uh, um, kind of emotional. I was supposed to be there, and life doesn't always cooperate, and things come at us. So when your house nearly burns down because you have an electrical fire, you have to step back and go, hey, as much as I love this sport, I really want to have a house to come home to. So that had to take precedence. But it was still fun to get to see these guys compete against each other live online, and that's another thing that I'll give Brian credit for. And I'll also say that strongest man on earth, world's strongest man. I don't really think that this should be like some sort of competition about hey, which is the better contest or whatever. But I like the fact that we do have more contests for these athletes to compete in, and I think this should be a wake up call to the world's strongest man. Yes, they've got this TV deal, and yes, the contract is still running, and I don't think it ends this year. I think there's another 2 years on that contract, but maybe not. But all of us who are strongman fans, we hate the way the world's strongest man goes. We hate the fact that we can't watch it live. We hate the fact that we got to sit 3-4 months to see it. And I guess you guys like hanging out with me and looking at spreadsheets with me. And if we get to watch it live, I'll probably never get to talk to you guys again because you won't hang out with me anymore when we can start watching World's Strongest Man live together. But in spite of losing you as my friends because we'll be able to watch it live if they change that, let's face it, we all hate the fact that World's Strongest Man is not aired live. And that is something that's really cool about the Shaw Classic, that we can watch this. Yes, I'm heartbroken that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm also incredibly grateful to Brian and Carrie for putting the event on and giving us the ability to watch it live. And it didn't bother me to pay $20 in spite of the fact that I already bought tickets. There's a part of me that thinks, hey, if you bought tickets, you should get live streaming rights as a free bonus. but but again, the money that went for the live stream went directly to the athletes and giving them more prize money. So I didn't mind donating an extra $20 so that the people that provide me with this great entertainment um, could make a little more money. So there's all that. And hello, partner. So let's talk a little bit about the career of Brian Shaw. Um, I just did a biography video of him not that long ago, and I didn't think we were going to have anything else to put into it. I thought the history of Brian Shaw had been written. Make no mistake about it, the Shaw Classic has turned into a big deal in a very short amount of time. I think we basically have four real big shows now. We've got, of course, the World's Strongest Man. We've got the Arnold Strongman Classic. We've got the Rogue Invitational, and we've got the Shaw Classic. There are other big events. This is a much better time for the sport of strongman than it ever has been before. These athletes can finally start making a little bit of cash. But I'd say that those are the four big prizes that you can go after. And I think the prestige of the Shaw Classic is probably better than the Rogue Invitational because it carries the Brian Shaw name. So It's only been around, this is just the fourth year, but make no mistake about it, it's a big deal already. And Brian won the first one. It was in the middle of lockdown. It wasn't the most stacked field. There weren't a ton of athletes. Of course, you're going to get the whole thing. It was on Brian's property, basically. Brian got to choose the events. All the stuff was going Brian's way. He still showed and won. And he won the first one. He won the inaugural one. And I think it was important and cool that he did that. Um, but I don't think Brian would get mad at me for saying this. That I think winning the first one was a whole lot easier than winning this year because the competition was way more stacked this year. It was deeper and more stacked. And let's not forget the fact that he's 4 years older now. So um, I think it means more now. And again, the same kind of criticisms that you could have given to Brian a few years ago by saying, well, it's his equipment, he's gotten to use it, and all of these home field advantage. You could say those things, and there is some credence to that. But I think that some of that criticism isn't fair either. I heard a lot of people talking going into the week that it wasn't really that fair because Brian got to use the leg press machine, and Brian was going to get to use the chest press machine in advance. It was Brian's log, and all of these different things. Here's some truth that hasn't been talked about. Yes, Brian got to use some of these things and similar, and they're the fact that it's been modeled after some of the stuff. He actually didn't get to use most of these apparatuses and try these things before these other athletes. They were still ordering parts to fix some of this equipment up until yesterday. I wasn't even sure, to be honest with you, if they should use some of this equipment because I was thinking, man, I don't know that this stuff has been tested well enough to actually say that it's safe for the athletes to use. Um, so the truth of the matter is, Brian didn't really have that much of an advantage over them as far as equipment goes because the equipment was still basically being built up until the contest started, pretty much. So I mean, and this was a heck of a stacked field. You could sit there and say when he won it the first year again that maybe it wasn't the deepest. I just said it. You could sit there and say there weren't as many people in the contest because there weren't. I think there were only 10 people there. Maybe it was 12, but I think it was only 10. I'd have to go back and check. I'm getting older too. My mind is. We had 14 of the very, very best there. And if you want to talk about whether or not they're really the best, well, let's look. In recent times, the world's strongest man has been won by Tom Stoltman, Alexei Novikov, and Martins Licis. The only one of those guys that wasn't there was Martins Licis. So you've got Mitchell Hooper, the very best in the world right now, the reigning world's strongest man. You've got Alexei Novikov. You've got Tom Stoltman, who before Mitchell Hooper had won, Tom had won the last two in a row. So the last four World's Strongest Man victory champions were present and accounted for in terms of year by year by year. And they're all young. They're not just the recent winner. They're all young. They're all in either the prime right now or their prime is still yet to come. Brian has this great following, has these people who support him like none other. And I'm a huge Brian Shaw fan. A huge Brian Shaw fan. But I'm also a realist. And I'm also a fan of the sport. And I'm also acknowledging the fact that Father Time is real. And so sometimes you guys have seen me on these streams when people are cheering for Brian where I have to be like, come on, guys. I know you like the man. I know you respect the man. I know you want him to win. But be practical. Be real. He's not going to win. His best days are behind him. And that's a true statement. His best days are behind him. And he still came out there and won this thing. He battled with Mitchell Hooper for the first day of the competition. Mitchell Hooper goes in to the end of the first day of the competition with a half a point lead over Brian. He keeps that half a point lead after 5 events. And then in the 6th event, Brian bests Mitchell Hooper and puts some space because he does amazing on the 6th event. And at the end of 6, now Brian had a 3-point lead on Mitchell Hooper. And from that point, He never looked back, and that lead only got bigger, as you can see on the screen right there, finishing 7 points ahead of Mitchell by the time it was all said and done. If you look at that podium, Mitchell Hooper won the last World's Strongest Man. In the third place position, Tom Stoltman won the previous two, not one, two World's Strongest Man titles. Standing at the top of that leaderboard is four-time winner Brian Shaw, who hasn't seen a victory in quite some time. The last major competition he won was the Shaw Classic, the original one. This is a storybook ending. Sports don't do that for our heroes. You don't get to go out on top. You don't get to go out on top. Not in sports. We want them to. We like these stories. It feels good to see them and watch them, but it doesn't happen. And in this case, it did. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, a more caring guy, or a guy who loves his fellow competitors more than Brian Shaw. And if you guys got to watch it live, I don't know if you did or not, but it was cool. There was this ending moment there where at the event ends, Mitchell Hooper basically, the final event was not the Atlas Stones. This is something else that I really liked about this. You guys have heard me talk about this in the past. I like the Atlas Stones, but I don't like the fact that the freaking Atlas Stones has to be the final event at every competition. I think we put too much importance on them, and it's almost gotten stale that every freaking contest ends with those. You guys have heard me talk about this. So they put the Atlas Stones at the end of the first day, and they ended with a crazy combination of Fingal's Fingers and Power Stairs. They did a medley for the last event. 2 Fingal's Fingers, and then 2 sets of Power Stairs. Very, very heavy Power Stairs, I might add. The first block you had to pick up was 550 pounds, and the second Power Stair was even heavier at 600 pounds. As you can imagine, not many of the guys made it through. There were several touching moments at the end here. In the last round, it was Mitchell Hooper versus Brian Shaw going heads up on the Fingers and the Power Stairs. And the championship was going to be decided, but basically it was already decided. Going into this event, Brian had it sewed up. Basically, if Brian completed the course, he was the strongest man on earth. Mitchell Hooper knew that he had second pretty well sewed up. The only way, theoretically, that he could have lost the second place position would have been losing it to Tom Stoltman if Mitchell Hooper had done pretty poorly. And based on who had gone before, basically all Mitchell Hooper had to do to guarantee that he finished in second place was to make it through both Fingal's Fingers, the 550 Power Stairs, and then to get 2 steps of 600. So what Mitchell Hooper did was he completed 2 Fingers. He completed the 550 Power Stairs. Then he did 1 600-pound power block on the second set of stairs, a second step. Then he lifted the third one up there so that there was no question. He'd already sewed up a second place and couldn't improve it. He did that with the second one, basically, unless it was the slowest time out there. He puts a third one up there to lock his second place up. At that point, Mitchell Hooper knows that he can't win the thing, so he decides it's time to pay a tribute to Brian Shaw. I'm going to get a little bit emotional. Mitchell Hooper decides to stop competing. He doesn't go for a 4th step, even though he could have. He was slightly ahead of Brian, but he stopped. He went up the steps and waited for Brian at the top and cheered Brian to go ahead and finish the course. And it was a touching moment to see. And then when Brian did put the 600-pound block at the top, Mitchell helped him up on top of the Power Stairs and then lifted his hand triumphantly overhead, which I think I have a picture of here. Yeah, so this is after he helps Brian up. He grabs his hand and lifts it to the world. And it was so cool to see Mitchell stopped lifting the stairs and going after it, because he knew that no matter what, he could do no better than second. He could do no worse than second. So at that point, it became a chance to cheer on Brian and give Brian his flowers, um, in the contest. And I just thought it was a cool moment. And then after that, what was really cool to see was Brian gets up there and gives a speech to the people. Everybody's listening. Brian is usually, I'll be honest, I love the guy. I like the content that's out there, but let's be honest, he's not as charismatic as like an Eddie Hall or a Robert Oberst or some of these guys. Um, he's a nice guy. He's calm, um, but he shined in this moment, speaking to the crowd, and he did really really well. And he got vulnerable, and he talked about his faith, and he talked about his parents, and he talked about his marriage and his kids, and he just had a moment with the crowd, and it was pretty awesome. And then when he was finished, he comes down, and all of the athletes that he had just competed against, to a single one of them, with the exception of Mitchell Hooper. Mitchell Hooper did not give him like a big hug like everybody else was getting ready to. But I don't think it was disrespectful to Mitchell Hooper. I think it's because Mitchell Hooper just had that moment one on one with Brian at the top of the power stairs. He already had a moment with Brian to pay Brian respect and to give Brian affection. So that's the way I took it. But other than Mitchell Hooper, everybody waited at the bottom and made sure that they gave Brian hugs that lasted longer than a half a second. These were 350, 400-pound men having a moment with thousands of people watching on, unembarrassed, unashamed, and I just thought it was really cool. Um, it was just cool. And yeah, and I'm a little bit upset that I couldn't be there in person, but I was supposed to be. But I'm grateful that I got to watch his last contest live online, and it was a cool weekend of competition. I do feel like the best man won. I'm shocked and surprised that Brian did it, but I couldn't be happier for him. And yeah, unfortunately, we won't get to see Brian at the top of any more podiums, and we won't get to see him compete anymore. And now we'll just get to see him press the sport forward in other ways. And I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to do that. And he's given us a lot. And I don't know. I think I need to end this stream, tell you guys good night, and until the next contest. Hope you guys do well.